Good morning, everyone. Good morning to this solid ground. I think the 145th episode. As I keep saying, who would have thought we'd have got past episode 1? So Solid Ground is a live show, live here from my studio in Auckland, where I talk the topics of the day, the issues, I don't know, political, cultural, ethical, faith-based, whatever. Issues that have caught my eye over the last day or two, but also a live show. As the regulars know, we talk here, but I can also take your comments. If you're on the Family First Facebook page or on Family First YouTube channel, then those comments come live to me here in the studio, as they already are, piling on through both those channels. Know that if you're on the likes of my LinkedIn page or you're watching this on Substack, you are very welcome. And of course, welcome to comment as well. I can't see them live, so again, if you want to send me a question or make a comment on what I'm discussing, jump over to the Family First YouTube and Facebook channels and we can have a chat there. Look, there is no shortage of issues, and I doubt I'm going to get to all of them. A big chunk today actually is, well, not a big chunk, it's just I've got a lot of slides around it to show you the ever-growing absurdity of political and cultural indoctrination that's happening in society, particularly targeted at our young people and particularly around this whole mad concept of gender identity. And I want to share a few things there for you because I think it's important. But before we do, I will quickly say good morning just to prove to people this is live. To Lynette, good morning. We've got Darren there as well. Good morning to Mike. Lovely to have you along. Here it's wet in Taupo, according to Rosie. Harrison is saying good morning, but also noting the social media ban in the UK, but doesn't include Blue Sky. That's I'm going to touch on that in a little bit, but it is striking how the left-leaning social media is allowed to continue. Good morning to Samuel down there in Timaru. It's a bit chilly. It's actually not too bad here in Auckland today, I have to say. Strong in him. Ian, lovely to have you along. Dean, good morning. We've got Food Dogs Trucking a Jolly good morning. Got Nigel there in Te Awa Mutu. Excuse me, I'm kidding. Another Jackie, good morning to Malku, I think I've said that right. Hopefully I've said that right. And to Bernice. So look, guys, good morning. And to others who are commenting, lovely to have you along. Hey, look, first and foremost, I'm going to disappear off the screen. Just want to share this with you. You've possibly seen via email, or if you're watching Daybreak with Bob, we've announced the Forum on the Family. It's going to be the 11th and 12th of September. We have an amazing lineup of guests, including Ben Carson. He's coming virtually, so he's not there in person, sadly. That would cost us more than New Zealand budget. No, jokes aside, he will be attending via live video link. The others, from Sal Grover to Leighton Smith, Martin Isles, and doctors Gillian Spencer and Andrew Amos will be there in person. Other guests, other surprises we're getting. Good Lord, I'm falling to pieces and it's only Tuesday morning. We're also having a number of panels, a media panel with media personalities, a political panel, you can guess I'm one of them, a medical panel as well. So it's going to be really, really good. And just very quickly to Anna Marie and John there in Whanganui, lovely to have you along. Andrew Media, if I've read that, lovely to have you along too. So look, Forum on the Family, go across to forumonthefamily.nz to find out more details. It is going to be, I think, fantastic. New venue, new days as well. It's a Friday night and Saturday, and at the Victory Convention Centre, so by Victoria Park in downtown Auckland, so we're not in Manukau. So that's important. Look, I just want to signal this. I know it's my Substack, and I'm not going to get too much into this today, but the supposed peace deal, I say it's already a failure. I think this is a colossal failure by Trump and the West in terms of how it's dealt with the Islamic Republic. I know as I'm speaking to you that none of us know actually the details of the agreement, but I know enough to say that this is a failure. If you want to know why, go across to substack.com, look up On Point or look up my name. You can read my reasoning there. But I think this is, well, they call it a peace deal. It is not that. It is purely a very temporary ceasefire, in effect, to discuss things further. I just see failure right across the board, and I fear that the only real winner in this is going to be the Islamic regime, which is very, very disappointing, but not unexpected in some ways, because, I suppose from where the conflict started, and then the mixed messaging from Trump, and of course the motivations. He's got the midterms coming up. The Democrats are gaining a bit of ground. The Republicans are struggling. Inflation's hurting Americans. Basically, Trump is desperate to get some sort of deal, and very Trump at the moment is, well, trumpeting it of how great it is. It's not, as I say, it's a colossal failure. So go out, read my Substack if you want. No one's forcing you to see why I think what I do. I work to what I think is some good news. I know this is political, and some of you might have different opinions, but Simeon Brown has ousted the leadership of the Medical Council. So this is the group that oversees, doctors basically. And are they up to speed? Are they well enough trained, and are they fulfilling the core competencies of being doctors? But I know he got upset or worried recently by draft, I don't know what you want to call them. It's a draft document that the council put out of what they think the key competencies are for doctors. And it's completely writ large with cultural Marxism, and particularly critical race theory. So an absolute obsession with race, as you might imagine in New Zealand, absolute obsession with the Treaty of Waitangi. Again, it picks up all the very progressive, or if you want to prefer, the regressive narratives that things have to be decolonised, doctors need to be checking their privilege, the system is biased, so on and so forth. Now that is critical race theory. It is corrosive. It should have no place in the likes of the Medical Council. So good on Simeon doing this. I noticed that the original article's done by Andrea Vance. She cuts him no quarter. It's all very aggressive reporting from her side that somehow this is a conspiracy and it's wrong. For me, it's not, on two levels. Ministers are allowed to renew those on the board. They're welcome to sack people. In this case, he's just not renewed the mandate for those that have come on board. Because again, they're peddling political and cultural narratives which are not needed in the medical profession. And in fact, I don't know why the government doesn't actually step into a number of professions, because you remember last week I was talking about the army in its general orders proposing that, the pagan gods are to be acknowledged by all the soldiers. They're to focus on song and prayer. Personally, I want them to work out how to use their Mars Light infantry weapon and be more effective soldiers. And so look, this is really important. So good on Simeon. Kudos to him. I think it's a good call, but I'm sure he'll get it in the neck from our woke media. Harrison mentioned this. This is in the UK. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, the hapless Prime Minister, has announced there's going to be an under-16 ban. So overall, from the Family First perspective, we're supportive of that. I mean, it's up to the UK to do what the UK wants to do, but as you know, if you've been listening to Bob and I or following the podcasts, we're supportive of the under-16-year-old ban, if you will, or control around social media. The key question is how. And there's no real details of how Starmer intends to do this. As Harrison noted in the comments, sorry, I'm just looking at the comments as they're flying through. As he noted, it's going to ban the likes of TikTok and YouTube, Facebook. I'm sure X will definitely be in the gun. But the very far left alternative to X, called Blue Sky, it's actually a pathetically small social media platform, but it's where all those on the far left are. That doesn't get banned. So look, and this is just my view here. Oh, by the way, Keir Starmer's not introducing this until 2027, so it's a classic announcement from him. It's an announcement which really is way down the line. But the key question, guys, is really, how is this ban done? If it's just a ban on some sites and not others, well, that's not particularly fair and balanced. All you'll do is encourage young ones across to certain platforms that are not banned, which, my suspicious side, particularly of the likes of Keir Starmer, or even Albanese in Australia, because they did the same, are more than happy to keep young people off free speech platforms like X. but force them into the left-wing echo chamber of the likes of Blue Sky. But personally, I think banning particular sites doesn't work. We've certainly here at Family First talk about, do you actually create the ban through the App Store level? In other words, young people have to verify their age, and by that they can either download certain apps or not. Is it at a device level? In fact, I'm about to release a podcast in a week or so with, I won't say who it is, actually a remarkable person, and works in a very difficult space. You'll see it in the podcast, but talks actually there's technology now that you can limit what people can do at the device level, which is really important. So anyway, overall, Family First supportive of not so much bans, but making sure we can hold big tech to account, because we know the harm that is done to young people, but how you implement is the critical factor. And I better say too, for people, we do not want and do not need a so I've just seen it's a comment from Catherine. Because this is a family show, I won't put up, but I will say that it is hilarious. It was very well done. So look, I was just finishing off there. Digital ID, it's not something that Family First is supportive of. I want to put that out loudly and clearly. If I've understood this right, this will be around Simeon's call in the medical profession. They're going to end up forcing good people out, be it of the medical, and I hope I've got this the right angle, but I think if I've understood Kaz right, I think all these extra rules and competencies, which are all, again, politically and ideologically based, is going to force good people out. I already know of doctors who have left the profession because of different competency changes. And by the way, they are very competent doctors, but they're just sick and tired of the indoctrination that goes on, or the attack on their conscience and so forth. Look, I'm going to jump and stay with the UK just to signal. This is an MP, Lauren, I've forgotten her full name, Lauren Edwards, there it is at the top. Long and short, pushing the euthanasia bill again. So you'll know about a month ago, Kim Ledbetter, she's another MP, she had a bill trying to legalise euthanasia. Just about every medical and ethical professional body over there in the UK said no, or the disability groups, and the bill was defeated. Literally in the last few days, this MP is trying to put the same failed bill back into the ballot. The UK must have a different system to New Zealand, because here, once a bill is defeated, you can't bring it back in that parliamentary term. In other words, you get one bite of the cherry every parliamentary term. But this MP is pushing it again. So one, really just letting you know, it's the UK, it's not New Zealand. So that's not good. And secondly, it's just this absolute obsession with death that's happening. Kaz is somewhat correcting me. She was talking about the youth playing Xbox in terms of learning. Look, absolutely, actually, it's a very good point as well. I think it's one of the things why you just try and encourage, and I certainly do, the kids. Well, our kids are all grown up now, but to get off the devices, get off the Xboxes, go out and play, as you say, read a book. So fundamentally important. And I wonder, Kaz, and for others too, I think it's one of the reasons why New Zealand is having to, if you will, import so many people now from overseas to be our doctors and nurses and so forth, because the Kiwis just are not able to reach those levels, or they're not interested. Interesting. I just thought I wanted to touch on a few things. Look, as you know, we're encouraging people to make a submission on the legislation definitions of a woman and man amendment bill. This is in the name of Jenny Marcroft. In fact, I'm doing an interview with Jenny in a couple of hours, and I'll have that up on the podcast tomorrow, so you'll be able to hear from Jenny. She's the MP from, in this case, New Zealand First, who is promoting the bill. I'm wanting to talk to her about what it does, what it needs to do, does it need to go further. But because of that, obviously we're encouraging people to make submissions. You've still got a couple of weeks, but there's no time like today to make a submission, I would suggest, in support of the bill. You can always jump onto the Family First website to find out more details, but write it in your voice, and as you will all do, I'm sure, very politely and calmly. But you sort of begin to understand why we need these bills. So GenSpec recently put out a poll. So GenSpec's based here in New Zealand, and as the name suggests, it's respecting, in this case, even though it used the word gen, It's about sex-based rights. This is granted around puberty blockers, but long and short, it's very clear now the strong majority of New Zealanders do not support chemicalising young people. So there is a shift happening. People are beginning to wake up to, I think, the lies of what they call the gender-affirming care crowd, the various trans activists and so on. As I say, this is an increase. Only about 20% disagreed. 20% think, pumping kids full of chemicals, be it puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones, is okay. You've had me here before say I just see it as a form of child abuse, basically, and more often than not, parents more than prepared to sacrifice their children in order to get some weird affirmation from people. I'm bouncing across the countries, but I'm really just trying to demonstrate to you the breadth of the problem we have here. I've forgotten the name of this guy, but you might have seen, probably Bob would have played it yesterday, or you've seen it in the news. That's a guy who went into female wrestling and basically sexually assaulted his opponent. I won't say where he put his fingers, but in a place one shouldn't at all. Beyond appalling behaviour by this guy pretending to be a woman, completely able to overpower his opponent. Just terrible, but it, again, has been accused, and I think rightly from what you can see of the footage, of sexual assault. The girl who's losing the wrestle to this guy is calling out for help and actually noting what's happening to her. And this is just a sign of continuing on. The absurdity of particularly men in sports is beyond reckless. I mean, we're not talking little kids here. When they're 4 or 5, 6 or 7, it doesn't really matter. You've probably all gone to, a little soccer game with little boys and little girls running around. That's not what we're talking about here. Once they're into their teenage years and beyond, there is an absolute total and physical difference. And it just gets more and more absurd, like that Algerian boxer that beat the crap out of the Italian girl. And now we've got this guy pretending to be a woman and not just physically stronger, but actually sexually assaulting her. Just absolutely appalling. Speaking of appalling, this is the brand Lush, those stinking soaps. I'm sorry if you guys love them every time I walk past a shop. I don't know if they're in New Zealand anymore. This is them promoting Proud of My Stripes, and for a second I didn't quite click. What it is celebrating young girls who mutilate themselves and have their breasts cut off. This is the sick nature of transgenderism. It is celebrating the mutilation of healthy parts of a human body. And this soap company, very popular with young girls, is actively promoting self-mutilation and mutilation at the hands of doctors. It's sick. But I mean, we already knew that, but this is the absurdities, and I've often argued absurdities will build on absurdities. And so it's a bit like the abortion question, to be honest, where it was started from people who said, it should just be, rare, to now it's been openly celebrated by people, because once you've bought a lie, you've got to dig deeper and deeper to justify yourself. And so now Lush here is celebrating women who cut off their breasts and saying you should be proud of that. Again, I think it's just quite sick. It's why, again, I keep suggesting we need to be putting in submissions, because actually we need to protect women and girls in particular. You also get this sort of absurdity. This was actually a fairly sensitive area, because the wider part of the article is a woman who wanted her womb. They talk it here as the whare tangata, the house of the people. I suppose it's the simplest way they try to translate womb. The bigger part of the issue in the article, which is more important than what I'm about to touch on, to be honest, was that she requested that she has the womb returned to her whole. So within the Māori, Te Ao Māori, what is that cultural tradition, which is a bit of tautology there, can bury it whole. The doctor ignored that, which is unfortunate, and rightly I think the doctor's been held to account. So I think that needs to be discussed more, because actually there is a place for cultural respect, which actually brings us back to the first topic that I was touching on briefly around the sacking of the the sacking of the medical council guys. Of course there's a place for cultural competence to be taught for doctors, nurses, everyone, to understand that different cultures have different approaches better be clear, the medical councils, their tenure's not been renewed, not because they're teaching cultural competence at that level. They're forcing down cultural political narratives, be it again around the treaty or a belief in decolonisation, and so on and so forth. So there is a distinction here. And like this quite sad case in New Zealand, the cultural requests of this woman should have been accepted. But in reading the article, it was the second paragraph that caught my eye, and it just illustrates what I mean by absurdity in absurdities, because this woman says in the Te Ao Māori world, she is a wahine Māori, as in she's a woman. But in the Western or Pākehā world, she's a they, them. So not only now can you make up your gender, and you can make it up to be whatever you want, as you often hear me say, you can pretend to be a giraffe, a house, or a dolphin, but you can now switch your identity according to various cultural worldviews. So this is the thing about intersectionality, guys, because it's always splitting things up. It's just going to keep splitting until it's an array of absurdities. So you can be a two-spirit penguin as you identify as a Canadian, but you can be a bloke if you're in Australia. I don't know, you can be something else in the United States. It's just an absurdity within absurdities. As others are saying, and so look, this is just the craziness which is permeating through our society, and I do worry at times how this absurdity not only happened, but happened so fast. And obviously I'm touching on a wide array of things here. And this is from Winston Peters. I don't know if you saw it. This is to do with a protest. The trans crowd did a relatively small protest in, well, I think various cities, but in Auckland they'd had some reporting of it. They claimed 10,000. The Herald claimed 2,000. I think Stuff said there was a couple of hundred. So the first thing is, of course, they're conflating numbers. Secondly, these are the activists who, it's not just don't know what a man and a woman is. In fact, they do know. They just want to lie about it. But they are desperate to influence children, and they are desperate to continue forcing particularly men or allowing men into women and girls' spaces, be it sports, be it changing rooms, so on and so forth. It's just totally unacceptable. But I have to say, and I don't normally put up things by Winston, but I thought his response was absolutely hilarious, and just tore another one off them. I think he nails it. It is all about them, and this is part of the issue with the trans agenda. People go, oh, what is that? I mean, one, it is a focus on children. It is about bringing harm into the space to be accepted as normal. But what it is ultimately is selfish. It is so self-focused, and that's why it becomes quite a totalitarian dynamic. And you've heard me talk about that before, because the nature of the trans agenda is so weak that they have to force you to use their pronouns. They have to force you to accept their viewpoint in the world. And so you see it through the various associations. This is why what Simeon's done in the medical space needs to go wider. It shouldn't just be around race and cultural issues, but also political and ethical issues like this. Like midwives being encouraged, if not soon forced, to talk about chest feeding rather than a woman breastfeeding. To talk about people with a cervix rather than women, talking about pregnant people rather than mothers. They force you to use certain language, harass you to HR if you do not. In fact, that's why if you come to Forum on the Family, you're going to hear from those two doctors, Gillian Spencer and Andrew Amos. They are two doctors in Australia who have stood up and said this is absolute nonsense, and they've lost their jobs for it in a supposedly scientific and ethical profession. They've been sacked for having an opinion. So I know I've belaboured this point this morning, guys, but look, it's just so vitally important that you put in your submissions, and that's why I wanted to give you all these examples. If it's not, men wrestlers sexually assaulting women, it's the absurdity of puberty blockers, it's trans activists yelling and screaming their head off, with the complicity of the media, I might add. Of course, the media is very happy to report a couple of hundred trans protesters in Auckland, but when thousands turned up a few months ago for the March for Life, not a chance I'd report that. And look, Simply Green's quite right. Extreme tyranny. Others are noting their feeble views are always based around victimhood. Absolutely. And it's God, there's too many, too many comments. guys, thank you for those. So look, there's that. Now, just really quickly, and it's somewhat related, you would have seen, it would have been late last week, Barry Soper, I know Barry and Heather, but he's in trouble for referring to the now former Green MP Benjamin Doyle as an it. He got all his pronouns mixed up, and I just mention this for two reasons. One, again, this is the totalitarian, compelling nature of the trans agenda, or of the gender diversity crowd. I mean, what do you call these people apart from barking mad? There's always a compulsion element. They want to force you. Now, if you want to believe in a certain array of pronouns for yourself, well, fill your boots. But you can't compel me or anyone else to have to use them. But Barry got into trouble from the BSA, Broadcasting Standards Authority. As you know, it's been disestablished, and this just reinforces why. Because the BSA very rarely steps in and does anything. When the likes of the media whipped up the storm, which led to the beating and the attack on Posey Park and Albert Park, when the media was very complicit and in lockstep with the government around COVID, BSA has said nothing. The Right for Life crowd, so Ken Orr and the crew, often calling the media out for its extreme bias around the issue of abortion or euthanasia. The BSA says and does nothing. But on this one, a bit of banter between a husband and wife, where Barry gets a bit confused of which pronoun he's meant to use. Oh no, the BSA wants to make an example. It's a flick in the tail as they head on the way out to try and send a signal that their mates in the woke community need to be protected. Because according to the BSA, they're basing, and this is the stupidity of both the Human Rights Commission and Crown Law, sex is now broad enough to include non-binary people. Now, this is a lie built on a lie. It's not actually in our law anywhere. There's a report a few years ago. I think it might have been a judge that it's not a legal. That's what I'm trying to get at. This is not something actually legal, but it's an idea that's got into the system that sex now supposedly is broad enough to include non-binary. So sex becomes meaningless. Sex is either a male or female. If it's broad enough to include people who think they're male or think they're female or think that they're a couch, sex no longer has any meaning. But don't worry, the BSA is very upset about this, and again is trying to create an environment. It's just absurd. And I think I've got this right from Sam. The totalitarian nature of digital IDs and cameras. Yeah, look, I'll riff on that very quickly. It is something which does concern me. Whoops, I've lost Sam's comment. There we go. Excuse me, actually, I'm going to take a cup of coffee to ease my voice for a second in these last minutes. Then I have to play you a quick video. I definitely don't want digital IDs. That does worry me, even though we have so much shared already online, but don't want digital IDs. And look, there are cameras everywhere, and the technology is growing fast around facial recognition, the use of AI. So I think there's part of me, Sam, and to others, I think there's an inevitability around this stuff, but I think we need to keep talking about it and pushing back where we can. It does bother me. In fact, I was the MP who, gosh, would have been 4 or 5 years ago, actually asked all the government departments to tell me, what type of cameras they had. And long and short, to be quite honest, I was targeting the Chinese-made cameras, particularly from Hikvision, which are known to have compromises, and I was stunned how many sensitive government sites had these cameras. And I know that's not about digital ID and individual people, but we have to understand what the technology can do. Hey, I'm just going to play a short video before I go out. I'm going to disappear out of the screen. It's just one of our guests. I'll play short videos from all our guests upcoming on the forum on the family. I'll just riff on here. So I've got different little videos with each of them. But this is Sel with her little message to you.
Hi, I'm Sal Grover, and I'm really looking forward to coming to speak at a forum on the family in September in Auckland. I am going to be speaking about creating a woman-only app at the one time in human history when everyone is pretending they don't know what a woman is. I'm also going to get into the nitty-gritty details of Giggle v Tickle, which was the first gender identity versus sex discrimination case in the world, and explain why federal court judges are saying that sex is changeable. I'm really looking forward to seeing you all.
So Sel is amazing. If you haven't checked out my recent podcast with her, do so. But come and meet her in person. She is fabulous. And as I say, over the coming days, I'll play more videos of more of our guests. But guys, it's 8 o'clock. The day is young. I hope you have a wonderful Tuesday. I'll see you again here on Thursday morning.